Chapter 17: State Capacity: How Societies Build, Maintain, and Lose the Machinery of Complex Governance. State capacity is the hidden power behind every stable civilization. It is the accumulated ability of a society to collect information, make decisions, implement policies, enforce laws, mobilize resources, and coordinate large groups of people across time and space. It is not identical to government size, ideology, form of rule, or even wealth. A small state can have high capacity. A large state can have low capacity. A wealthy nation can have weak institutions. A poor nation can have strong extractive systems. What matters is not structure but function, the ability of the system to do what it claims it can do. State capacity is the central mechanism that links capability density to system complexity. It determines how well a society can handle taxation, infrastructure, regulation, public health, military defense, economic planning, diplomacy, disaster response, and technological integration. It is the glue that holds a society together. When it is abundant, even large and complex systems function smoothly. When it erodes, even simple tasks become difficult. The key insight is that state capacity is not static. Like all forms of capability, it must be replenished continuously. It can expand through education, cultural discipline, administrative training, institutional design, and social cohesion. But it can also decay through corruption, ideological distortion, demographic decline, bureaucratic bloat, or the introduction of too many low-capability operators. State capacity is not a natural resource, it is a fragile cultural and institutional achievement. Historically, high-capacity states have emerged from a small number of conditions. One is a disciplined governing elite, trained, cohesive, and willing to bear costs for long-term stability. Another is a literate, educated population able to operate administrative machinery. A third is a cultural framework that rewards rule-following, professionalism, and long-term planning. A fourth is an incentive structure that aligns the interests of officials with the interests of the state. When these conditions converge, a society rapidly accumulates state capacity. For example, the bureaucratic traditions of classical East Asia relied on the slow, methodical cultivation of administrative literacy and merit-based recruitment. The disciplined officer corps of certain European states emerged from military academies that instilled technical skill and service norms. Modern Northern Europe built high-capacity welfare states on foundations of trust, low corruption, and bureaucratic professionalism. The most capable pre-modern empires relied on narrow bands of highly trained administrators who oversaw tax collection, census-taking, grain storage, and dispute resolution with precision. But even the strongest state capacity begins to erode once the capability base shrinks or when complexity outgrows the system's administrative bandwidth. The erosion is slow and disguised. It manifests as increasing friction, longer queues, slower decisions, inconsistent enforcement, more paperwork, and more procedural steps to compensate for declining competence. The system still functions, but with steadily rising institutional entropy. The mechanism is straightforward. State capacity depends on a pipeline of capable individuals. When education quality declines, the pipeline shrinks. When fertility declines among high-capability groups, the pipeline narrows further. When capable individuals shift to the private sector or emigrate, it tightens again. Meanwhile, system complexity rises, more regulations, more technologies, more interdependencies. The gap widens. To bridge this gap, states lower entry standards. Hiring becomes more inclusive but less selective. Exams are simplified. Credentialing weakens. Supervisory layers multiply. Performance metrics shift from competence to compliance. The state increasingly operates through checklists because it lacks operators capable of judgment. This is visible everywhere. Tax authorities struggle to enforce rules. Courts accumulate backlogs. Infrastructure projects stall. Procurement fails. Disaster response degrades. Hurricane Katrina in 2005 exposed this brutally in the United States. There was no lack of money or warning, but FEMA paralysis, federal, state misalignment, contradictory command chains, and supply failures turned a natural disaster into a governance failure. The machinery existed. The capability to operate it did not. State capacity also declines through politicization. Bureaucratic positions become patronage rewards, ideological placements, or ethnic balancing mechanisms. The moment loyalty matters more than competence, decay begins. The first generation produces mild decline. The second produces dysfunction. The third produces hollow institutions. France's Yellow Vest protests revealed this dynamic. A fuel tax designed by technocrats ignored rural transport realities. The result was mass unrest, violent protests, and policy reversal. The bureaucracy was insulated from the ground conditions it governed. Corruption accelerates the hollowing. Early on, informal networks can maintain functionality at higher cost. Over time, they crowd out competence. Skilled operators withdraw or adapt to the corrupt system. Institutions become performative shells. Reports no longer reflect reality. Audits reveal nothing. South Africa's Eskom collapse illustrates this perfectly. Cadre deployment, corruption, and maintenance neglect hollowed out the utility. Rolling blackouts crippled industry. The grid did not fail because the technology was unsound. It failed because institutional capability had decayed. Infrastructure reveals the same pattern. Italy's Genoa bridge collapse in 2018 followed years of ignored warnings and falsified inspections. Oversight existed on paper. Safety was replaced by procedural compliance. 43 people died because bureaucracy had substituted paperwork for competence. Demographics accelerate decline. Aging populations increase fiscal pressure. Pension systems, healthcare, and elder services demand vast administrative capacity. Meanwhile, the workforce shrinks. As fertility declines, tax revenue stagnates and dependency ratios invert. The state enters a fiscal administrative squeeze, greater demands, fewer capable operators. Many societies attempt to solve this through immigration, but as shown in Chapter 16, mass immigration under declining state capacity increases administrative load. Schools must handle linguistic diversity, hospitals adapt to varied health baselines, welfare offices process more claims, courts handle integration disputes. All of this increases complexity when capability is falling. Late-stage immigration therefore accelerates capacity erosion unless managed by exceptionally strong institutions. The most subtle erosion comes from complexity inflation. Laws, regulations, compliance layers, and technological dependencies accumulate faster than they are retired. Institutions become more complex each year under the assumption of stable capability. When capability declines, this accumulated complexity becomes unmanageable. Permits take years. Infrastructure projects stall. Emergency response slows. Coordination failures propagate like cracks in a pressured dam. Eventually, societies face a threshold: simplify or collapse. Simplification can mean decentralization, privatization, regulatory rollback, automation, or geopolitical contraction. All are attempts to realign complexity with capability. Collapse is simply what happens when simplification is delayed too long. Collapse does not mean chaos. Rome contracted. Britain shrank. Japan stagnated. The Soviet Union fragmented. The Ottoman Empire transformed. Collapse is realignment, not apocalypse. The core insight is this: state capacity is the rate limiter of civilization. It governs how large, intricate, and connected a society can become. When capacity rises, societies expand. When it stagnates, they plateau. When it declines, they contract. The trajectory is governed by demography, education, institutional design, cultural norms, and capability density. In the next chapter, we dive deeper into demographic decline, how fertility shapes capability, why low-birth societies lose resilience, and why demographic engineering becomes the final battleground for advanced civilizations.